To the untrained eye, this may appear to just be a pile of stuff, but in fact, it's actually a collection of gift ideas for content creators. If you're looking for some ideas for the content creator in your life, I've got some that just about any creator would appreciate. Before we dive in, I want to mention this video is not sponsored, and I really do use everything that I'm going to mention, except for one thing that I will point out when we get to it. Now, I do have Amazon affiliate links down in the description for you though, so if you're planning on picking up anything that we talk about and you'd like to support this channel, those links are down there. All right, so I've separated this list into two categories based on whether you know some details about the gear the recipient uses, or maybe their personal preferences, or whether you kind of just don't have much information to go on. There are chapter markers below, so you can jump to either of those sections if you want to. First up, let's talk about a few ideas that require some knowledge of the kinds of gear the recipient uses, or in some cases, maybe just their personal preferences, the things that they prefer. This first idea requires you to know the camera or cameras that the recipient uses, specifically the kind of batteries that their camera uses. Camera batteries usually require charging directly either in the camera itself connected to a charger or with a dedicated battery charger, but companies like Small Rig and K&F Concept have started making compatible batteries like these, which are for Sony cameras, both of these examples. They happen to incorporate a USB-C port right in the battery itself. So you don't need to charge these in the camera. You don't need to charge them with a special charger. You still can, but you've got this USB-C port built right into them. So if all you have is a USB-C cable with a charging brick or even a portable power bank, you can actually charge up your camera batteries in all of those scenarios without having your special, camera battery charger with you. Now, it's easy to look up the correct battery for the camera that the recipient has on the manufacturer's website. You can also simply go to retail sites like B&H Photo and take a look at that camera's specifications as long as you know the camera model that they use. Now, you should be able to find examples like this for Sony, Panasonic, Canon cameras, Fuji cameras. If you do a little bit of searching around on Amazon, I've got a couple links in the description to help with that. I do want to point out there's a lot of companies that make these types of batteries now, and I personally only have experience with Small Rig and K&F Concept, and they both have worked well for me. The camera recognizes the batteries. There's no overheating issues. So I would just recommend checking out some reviews, of course, before buying if you're not familiar with the brand. The price range on these is going to be anywhere from $20 to $50 per battery, depending on the battery type and the capacity. Bigger batteries, of course, going to cost a little bit more than these smaller batteries. Next up, let's talk memory cards, specifically SD and micro SD memory cards. Now, I've got kind of one stand-in here because, well, I'm using all of my memory cards right now in my cameras. Having an extra memory card is always a good thing if you record to SD or CF Express memory cards. Again, this is going to require you to know the type of camera and the type of memory cards that the recipient actually uses, because you want to make sure that you get the right type of card, of course, but also the right capacity and the right speed for the type of content that they make, because there is a difference. Now, V60 SD cards like this one from Sabrent are commonly used for recording up to 4K 30 frames per second, while V90 cards are needed for recording 4K 60 or 4K 120. Now, the blazing fast CF Express cards come in a Type A and a Type B, and again, you want to make sure that you know which one they actually need for their camera if that's the route you're going. When it comes to capacity, I would generally recommend going with 128 gigabytes or higher if you're buying it for use in a camera, because 4K quality eats up storage pretty quickly. Now, if you don't know exactly which type of SD card the recipient uses, it's best to either, find a casual way to ask them, or maybe consider one of the other gifts, because memory cards can be expensive and you want to make sure that you get them the right kind. For SD cards, I mostly use SanDisk Extreme Pro V60 and V90, but I've also used Lexar, ProGrade, and Sabrent like this one. They've all worked pretty well in my Sony cameras. For CF Express cards, I'd recommend looking at Sony and Lexar, and there are some new cards also from Sabrent that are CF Express that are worth checking out as well. Again, check reviews if you're not familiar with the brand that you're looking at. Now, memory cards have a big range in prices and often go on sale periodically throughout the year, especially in the fourth quarter. V60 SD cards are going to be the least expensive, while CF Express cards tend to be the most expensive. Okay, so now this one's a little bit of a different idea, and it requires you to know if the recipient has a content creation subscription, like Artlist.io already. Artlist.io is an all-in-one service for content creators that offers a massive library of royalty-free music, stock footage, sound effects, templates, and plugins for video editing. Subscriptions are available monthly or yearly, and you can get different combinations of tools, including just music and sound effects, or just the stock footage and editing tools, or everything. Tools like this can really help content creators improve the production quality of their video content. Now for this one, I want to point out, this is the one that I don't personally use myself, and I'm also not an affiliate with Artlist. The link in the description is not an affiliate link. I personally use Epidemic Sound for my royalty-free music for my content, but I couldn't find any information whatsoever about gift subscriptions for Epidemic Sound or a way to do that. And with Artlist.io, it's also a little bit cumbersome. I will put a link to an FAQ on their site that explains their recommendation for gifting a subscription, but it involves basically signing up for one and paying for it and using the recipient's email, which will then allow them to set up their own password. You can certainly contact Artlist directly with their customer support if you have any questions about that. So why recommend Artlist.io if I don't use it myself and I'm also not an affiliate? Well, basically because if someone was going to give me a subscription to one of these services, this is the one that I would want. The size of the catalog and the quality of the content is fantastic. All right, now onto the audio side of things. If you know that the recipient uses XLR microphones, so not USB microphones, then some high quality cables can always be a nice gift. When it comes to length, you can always get a set of different lengths, such as 3 foot, 6 foot like this one here, and 10 foot, unless you happen to know what they actually use or maybe what they even need. There are several different manufacturers known for making excellent XLR cables, including Mogami, Conair, and Gotham. Now, one of my favorite cable makers is World's Best Cables, available on Amazon. They assemble cables from manufacturers like Mogami. This is a Mogami cable right here, and then they add top-tier quality connectors from Neutrik, and they offer them for relatively affordable prices in all different sizes. Now, microphone XLR cables have 3 pins, and they should have a male and a female end. Another option, if you want your gift to offer kind of a pop of color, would be to go with Rode's XLR cables, which have 7 different color options. They're made from high-quality Conair cable and Neutrik connectors, and they come in 2 different lengths, 3 meter and 6 meter. You can also find these on Amazon as well. Now, good quality audio cables like these generally cost anywhere from $25 to $40 each, depending on the length, but the total price, of course, will depend on whether you decide to give a set or an individual one. Next up, we have an option that requires you to know the recipient's personal preferences when it comes to keyboards. The Newfie Air 75 V2 here is one of my favorite pieces of new tech to come out in 2023, and it's quite possibly the best 75% low-profile mechanical keyboard currently on the market. It could be a great gift for content creators because we spend a lot of time at the keyboard. Video scripts, blog posts, video editing, all of it is much more enjoyable if you have a nice keyboard. Now, you're going to want to know some of their personal preferences here for a couple reasons. One is that this is a low-profile keyboard. If they happen to prefer regular or high-profile keyboards, this may not fit the bill for them. Also, there are different color options. There's actually 3. There's this white color option, there is black, and there's also gray, so you want to know kind of what color they would prefer. And then the last reason would be that the Air 75 V2 has no less than 7 different switch options, including linear, tactile, and clicky. Linear is a good bet if you have no idea what they like. The Cowberry switch from Newfie is my personal favorite. But if they like tactile switches that give a little tactile bump of feedback when typing, the Moss option is also quite nice. Clicky switches, which would be Gatoron Blue, are the loudest and give the most feedback. Generally not the best idea if you're not sure what their preferences are. The good news is that the Air 75 V2 is fully hot swappable, meaning the switches can be changed out easily if they want to swap them. Now, I do have a full review video of the Air 75 V2. If you want to check that out, I'll put a link to that in the description. The price of the Air 75 V2 is $119 with Gatoron switches or $129 with Newfie switches. And if you buy direct from Newfie, I do have a coupon code for you. Code SEMIPRO will get you 10% off. These do ship from China though, so watch out for the timing if you're ordering for the holidays. The DHL express shipping option, in my experience, is pretty quick to the United States, but it's also a little pricey. Now, my last suggestion in this category requires you to know the exact thing the recipient wants. And if you do know exactly what the recipient wants, then you're probably not watching this video. But just in case you are, content creators often have gear in mind as sort of their next upgrade that they want to make. And that might include things like a microphone or a pair of headphones. I'm going to specifically point out microphone and headphones because they tend to be a little bit more affordable than some of the other stuff us content creators want, like a new camera. Now, a microphone or even a microphone with a nice stand that goes with it, like this one. This is a newer stand from Rode, DS2, I believe it is. I'll link to it in the description, with a Rode Pod mic here. If you happen to know that they want a microphone like this, and maybe they would appreciate a nice desk stand to go with it, this can be a fantastic gift, and it can save them the money or the expense of an upgrade they were planning on making at the same time. Same thing goes for a nice pair of headphones as well. Now, the pricing on all of these things is going to range widely depending on what the specific thing is that they actually wanted. But for the most part, you can expect microphones and headphones to go anywhere from $100 up to maybe $300. All right, now let's jump into some of the gift ideas that don't require you to have quite as much or any specific information about the recipient's gear or their setup. First in this category is an audio, video, or AV multi-tool. I never knew how much I needed one of these until I got one. This one here is from Small Rig, and it's got a bunch of tools on it, many of which look, common, just like any other multi-tool. You've got Phillips head screwdriver, flathead screwdriver, some different hex bits here. But one of the most helpful, in my opinion, is the flat bar here, which is just wide enough to turn those pesky 3/8 to 5/8 inch adapters for microphone stands that are just too wide for other regular screwdrivers. These are also nice and small, so they make great stocking stuffers. Look for an all metal design so that it's nice and sturdy. Other than that, you can expect these to run anywhere from $30 to $50 depending on how many attachments they have. Next up, a little bit of a higher priced option would be an external SSD. I personally think everybody needs a good portable SSD, whether you're a content creator or not, for a multitude of reasons. But content creators often need several SSDs or external storage drives and larger storage capacities. Now, unless the content creator already has a huge NAS bank and tons of portable drives like this already, then chances are they'll appreciate having an extra SSD around. Now, for content creation purposes, I would recommend looking at drives that have at least 1,000 megabyte per second read and write speeds, like this Crucial X9 Pro or this Samsung T7. That will ensure the recipient has quick transfers of big video files. For capacity, I would suggest 2 terabytes or larger. Now, my top recommendations are the two that I've been holding, the Crucial X9 Pro and the Samsung T7. One thing to be aware of, if your recipient is a Mac-only user, if they just don't own any Windows devices, the Crucial devices don't currently have a way to update the firmware on Mac devices. They only have software available to update firmware on Windows. Now, that's usually not a big deal because these drives don't often require firmware updates, but if down the road, the manufacturer discovers there's a bug in the firmware that they need to correct with a firmware update, right now a Mac user wouldn't be able to do it with the Crucial drives, but you would be able to do it with the Samsung drives because Samsung does have Mac software for updating the firmware. So that's just something to be aware of. I personally use these and I use a MacBook for all of my content creation. I've never run into a problem with them, never had to update the firmware. So it could be a complete non-issue. I just wanted to point that out. Now, these will cost anywhere from $80 to $300 or even slightly more, depending on the capacity that you get. During holiday sales, though, you can often get these are both 2 terabyte capacities. You can often get these for anywhere from $100 to $129. All right, now another tool that content creators appreciate having multiple of is USB power banks. Even though I record indoors in this studio space about 95% of the time, I still use at least one of these power banks every single time for powering my audio recorder because I don't have an AC power cord that's long enough to reach it. They're also great for powering gear on the go when you don't have access to wall power. Now, I personally have and trust Anker power banks, though there are plenty of different brands on the market. 2 of my favorites are this one here, which is 20,000 milliamp hour capacity, and it provides 20 watts of power delivery from the USB-C port. Another favorite of mine is the Anker 24,000 milliamp hour power bank that provides up to 65 watts of power delivery, and it has 2 USB-C ports, one that does the 65 watts and one that does 20 watts. Now, these will run you anywhere from $30 to $100 depending on the capacity and the power output that you get. The next idea is another studio helper item that I just couldn't live without, and that would be clamp magic friction arms. There's a few different names for them. You'll see them referred to as friction arms or magic arms, and they come in multiple sizes, but the general idea is they will have a clamp on one end that grips very tightly onto pretty much anything that it can fit its clamp around. And then the other end usually has a 1/4, 20, or 3/8 inch mount. And of course you can use adapters to change that thread size for a bunch of different accessories. We're gonna talk about the light that's mounted to it in just a moment, but let's focus on the friction arm here. Now, what makes these special is that when you clamp them down onto anything, really, it can be anything round or flat, doesn't really matter. As long as the clamp fits around it, it'll hold on. There's one screw in the middle here, right here, and you loosen that up, and then you can position this in any position that you need. And that's what makes it so amazing and flexible. And then you just tighten that down and it stays in place. The weight capacity of these, I believe, is in the range of 3 to 5 pounds. I'll put it on the screen. These are made by Small Rig and they have two sizes. They have a 9.8 inch size, which is this size, and then they have a shorter 5.5 inch size as well. These range in price anywhere from $24 to $29, depending on the size that you get. But they're just so versatile that any content creator, I think, would benefit from having a couple extra of these sitting around. They're great for travel. I use one for this light that we'll talk about to position it anywhere I need. I just use them all over the place. My last suggestion in this category is a compact RGB video light, like this 20-watt M20C from Zhiyun. I actually thought this was the kind of thing you really had to have a specific need for in order to, really get any use out of it. I thought that at least until I got one. It's actually very handy to have around. It's a multi-purpose light, and the light output of this is actually quite high for a 20-watt light. This comes in two different ways. It comes with basically just the light or the kit, and the kit includes attachments that are magnetic. So it's got these barn doors, and then it's got this honeycomb, and the honeycomb is just like a grid on, a studio light. So it helps to direct the light really forward instead of scattering out in all directions. And they're super easy to pop on and off, and they really help you shape the light the way that you want it to be. These have a built-in power bank that'll last about 40 minutes on 100% power. They also have a little fan in there. It charges via USB-C, and it's got 3 different cold shoe mounts, so you can actually add more to it if you need to. The whole thing is actually magnetic, so if you have a metal surface that you want to mount it to, you can just stick it on there and it'll stay put. You can use it for a lot of different things because of that power output. You can use it as a hair light, a motivator light, just a color accent with the RGB colors. In addition to having all the RGB colors, you have regular color temperature range as well, so you can use it to actually light smaller scenes like product B-roll. If you don't need a big powerful light, maybe you just want to throw a little bit of light onto a product to shoot some B-roll. Now there are several lights like this available. This one just happens to be my favorite. The M20C is available without all the attachments for $129 or with the magnetic attachments for $169. And that's gonna do it for my gift ideas for content creators. If none of those sounded like a good fit to you, don't underestimate the power of the gift card or e-gift card. Retailers like B&H Photo and Adorama offer a huge variety of content creation gear, and I personally don't expect my friends and family to know the exact things that I use or things that I want. So I always appreciate getting a gift card because I can get that exact thing that I really wouldn't expect other people to know about. So what ideas did I miss? Let me know down in the comments if you have other gift ideas for content creators. Don't forget I have links down in the description for you if you're interested in picking anything up that we talked about and you want to support this channel. I hope you found this helpful. Happy gift giving, and I'll see you next time.